To get started, let's first say File, New Project. And what I actually want to create is an ASP.NET web application. I just want to create this as an MVC application to show you where Owen appears inside of this application. So as soon as Visual Studio finishes adding all the NuGet projects, we should have Solution Explorer open up. And we'll be able to take a look at the assembly references inside. And here we can see Microsoft.Owen, Microsoft.Owen Security, also an assembly just named Owen. So Owen is in a new MVC application. The question is, what does it do? And what can we do with it? So let me create another project. This time I just want to create a console mode application. And I want this console mode application to use Katana and to listen for and process HTTP requests. And in order to do that, I need to install a few NuGet packages. So I will open up the Package Manager console, and I am going to install two packages. Both of these packages are in a pre-release phase as I'm doing this recording. So I'm going to add the -include pre-release flag to install package. And the first one I'll ask for is Microsoft.Owen.hosting. And this will actually pull down a few dependencies, including a dependency Owen and also Microsoft.Owen. So at this point, we have 3 assemblies added to the project. And now I want to pull down one more package. I want to pull Microsoft.Owen.host.htp listener. So the first bit we added were the core Katana pieces. I also want to pull down this HTTP listener that knows how to interact with the operating system and actually listen on a port for HTTP messages to arrive. And with that, I have all the software I need. I have references to Owen, which contains some of the core Owen abstractions, and I also have the Microsoft extensions to Owen and assemblies that will allow me to essentially turn this console mode application into a small web server. So the first thing I will need to do is configure this application. And to do that, I'll create a class called Startup. Why is it called Startup? I'll cover that in a little more detail later. But when you use Katana, you'll be creating one or more startup classes. And those startup classes will have a configuration method that will take an object that implements an iAppBuilder interface. That's in the Owen namespace. So I need to add a using for Owen. And iAppBuilder is very important because iAppBuilder will include some methods that allow you to configure how this application is going to behave and respond to HTTP requests. And as you add additional Katana components, add additional NuGet packages, you might see additional methods appear on this iAppBuilder object because many of the Katana components include extension methods for iAppBuilder that make it easy to configure and start up a particular feature that you might need. But for right now, I'm just going to use the run method. The run method is a method that Katana will call into to process all HTTP requests. You can see it takes a function, and this function takes one parameter of type IOWNContext, and it returns a task. That's the delegate signature for func, and essentially I could write a lambda expression here. So I could say, let's take a context object, and I need to return a task, but on that context object, I have access to information about the request. So I can look at authentication properties, I can look at environment properties, I can look at a request object and a response object. This environment property is rather interesting, and we'll come back to look at it later, but you'll notice it is an iDictionary of string and object. This property will essentially contain all of the information about the request, the HTTP headers, the cookies, the path, the verb that was used. It's all in an iDictionary of string and object, which is one of the core abstractions of Owen. That's very simple. It's not like we have in ASP.NET where everything is a specialized class to deal with things like the cookie collection. Owen tries to provide a very simple API, so there's not a lot of custom types, and it's very flexible that way. But what I'll do in this run method is to go to the response object and do a write async hello world. Write async is a method that returns a task, so I can simply return that. And this is all the application will do. Every request that comes in, it will respond with hello world. And since this is a console mode application, of course the entry point is this main method. I need to actually start some sort of web server in this main method. So let me define a URI where this application will listen. We'll say that it's going to listen on the local machine on port 8080. And then I'm going to use a class called WebApp, which is in Microsoft.owen.hosting, so a Katana component. And I want to tell Katana to please start using the configuration that you find in this startup object and using this port. That will start the server. So I can do a write line to let everyone know that we started the server. Could also do a read key to keep the server running until someone presses a key in the console. And when they do, we can say that we are then stopping. And with that, I should be able to run this with Control F5. And it looks like my server has started. Now I just need to open a browser, go to localhost 8080, and we have our first Katana application running. Now, Hello World is nice, but what about this welcome screen that appeared in the slides? Where did that come from? And how did I create it? Well, the welcome page is one technique and a good example of how to customize the app builder object with additional features. To get the welcome page, I need to install another NuGet package. This one also in pre-release. It's called Microsoft.owen.diagnostics. And this particular package includes a few components that make it easier to build Katana applications, or to help build a Katana application and troubleshoot things. And one of those components is the welcome page, which I can get through a new method that will now appear on App Builder called useWelcomePage. Notice there's also a useErrorPage. And this is sort of the premise of how Katana will work. As you add references to other Owen components, they will typically provide some extension methods that you can use with iAppBuilder to add additional features to an application easily. So I add a diagnostics package, and now I can invoke useWelcomePage. Essentially, I don't need to use an application.run now. I'll comment that out, but we'll come back to it later. I can press Control F5 to run the application. It started again. Refresh my web page. And there's the Owen welcome screen that we saw in the slides. So what we've seen so far is how to use WebApp to explicitly start a web server and have it listen at a given location. And we have to tell that WebApp how to configure itself. And that's done through a startup class and an iAppBuilder interface. I call a few methods on iAppBuilder, and a lot of magic happens. Let's try to take a deeper look at that magic and dispel some of it.